Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm live, I'm in the studio, so get involved in the chat and the comments. Going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news. Obviously, we've got the big one this weekend, the Manchester derby at the Etihad, so we'll be getting into that a little bit. We are going to be hearing from Ruben Amorim and Pep Guardiola, I think, later on today, so we'll have a bit more of an update in terms of who's available for that one, but we can get into some of the stories that are doing the rounds in the meantime. Good to see so many people in the chat already. 2 Sigs in a cider, Santa Notch is there, Brian Casey, Mick Hullahan, Jacoya Trott, Maurice Marshall. Make sure all you wonderful people are smashing a like. Also, Mega K, welcome to the Academy. Extra content on the members section, so big up everyone who supports us via that. Right, let's get into it then. Let's talk about what was on the thumbnail, or what is on the thumbnail. This £100 million payday thing. If you just move that thing out of the way so I can see the headline. There we go. Man United consider midweek friendlies in drastic bid after missing out on a £100 million payday. So this is in the Mirror. Manchester United failed to qualify for any European competition. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, we know that. We've got we've got sort of extra time. So what the Mirror is saying here is that we're in talks to play a series of lucrative midweek friendlies in order to. No, I'm reading that. In order to fill the gaping void left by their lack of European football. The Red Devils finished 15th in the Premier League last term and lost the Europa League final, resulting in them failing to qualify for Europe for the first time since the David Moyes season. We can scroll up. United were also, yeah, we know all that, so let's get to the good bit. Manager Ruben Amorim believes that there's a major silver lining as he'll have work time on the training ground to work with his players. That's not grammatically correct. Amorim also has suggested that his team aren't yet ready to be competitive both domestically and in Europe. That was kind of reiterated by the fact that we weren't even able to compete in the Carabao Cup against Grimsby. It says here that the bigwigs of Old Trafford have other plans, having missed out on a £100 million payday after their failure to qualify for the Champions League. It is said that the likes of AC Milan, Lazio, RB Leipzig and Sevilla, if you scroll up, who all find themselves in the same predicament as Amorim's side, are among their potential opponents. So we could have some friendlies here. We could have some sort of not a Super League scenario where it's an actual competitive league, but friendlies in midweek to sort of, let's pretend we're in Europe, and that could generate some money. We know we need extra dough, and that could be generated, that could be reinvested into the squad. We'll have to wait and see if this pans out. I mean, it does kind of make sense, this, doesn't it? I know it's like people go, well, we only want one game a week, and that's the advantage of having one game a week. But it's not the end of the world if we did have a few friendlies and we got £100 million extra revenue. Let me know what you think, because you might disagree. You might think, Jay, why are we bothering with this? We don't need the money that desperately. Why don't we just focus on the league and see if we can just sort of make the most of having one game a week? I mean, I get both arguments, to be honest with you. For me, I'm not overly bothered if we do have some friendlies. And I won't be complaining if we generated £100 million and then we went and bought a new striker or a new defender or midfielder or whatever in the summer because of it. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we'll wait and see. Let me know what you think. C. Joe James John says our own Super League. Steve Rolfe says, why don't they play the ladies team? I don't think that's going to happen. Mac Duddy, yeah, baby, says, bit giddy this morning with the scroll. Yeah, I think producer Harry just loves a bit of scrolling. Irish Farmer says, I think it's a great idea, even if we get rinsed by media and the rivals. Brian Casey says, knowing our club, these friendlies will be in Asia and New Zealand. Santa Notch says, we've purposely reduced squad numbers as the lack of fixtures means less chance of injuries. Doesn't this sabotage that way of thinking? So he thinks it's a bad idea. SG also doesn't believe the numbers. No chance we can get 100 million through friendlies unless we have about 50 of them. Alex King says it's the loser league. Jay and Joe's adopted son Benjamin says Jay is so relaxing to listen to. The best, thank you. Ian says good morning from Indiana, USA. Also in the chat, sorry, let's just have a look. Yeah, just loads of people in the chat saying that bit of a mixed bag. Most people don't seem to be too keen, but there are some people that are. Aussie in the Sky says, best line I've ever heard Jay Motti. I never heard of anyone say I got sober and my life went straight down the toilet. Yeah, that's very true. Look, I get the idea, right? If we can generate revenue, we can get that revenue spent on players, yeah, that is a positive thing. But I think first and foremost, United have to get our act together in terms of domestically. We're already knocked out of one competition. In the league, we've been okay. It's not been quite the disaster that some people have made out, but we can hardly say we're flying after 3 games, which consist of 1 draw, 1 win and 1 loss. So I think we just got to box clever with this one and just see where we're at. Do we have the players for it? Do, as Santa Notch says, is it going to scupper our sort of, our league form because we haven't got the squad to be having friendlies? Is it just so pointless you don't bother with it? Or can you have your cake and eat it where you can go, look, we can have friendlies. Maybe we can, I know it's not ideal, but maybe some of the youngsters get game time and maybe we do generate enough revenue that you can go out and you can pay for Carlos Baleba in the summer. We'll have to wait and see. It's one to keep an eye on. At the minute, it only sounds a little bit ifs and buts, and I think the original story came from the Sun. # don't buy the Sun. I wouldn't use that to clean me gutters out with, let alone read it and trust it for news stories. So we'll have to wait and see if there is anything in this, because we've heard about these potential sort of mini leagues before. I'm not talking about the Super League, but we've heard about this potentially like where teams going, look, we're not in Europe, let's do something like this. I don't think this is an idea that hasn't been suggested at least before. However, I don't think it's ever happened, or certainly not I can recall, and as yet it isn't happening. It's just something that's being mooted, and we'll have to wait and see whether it gets anywhere. Let's talk about Onana, Andre Onana. He's finally gone to Trabzonspor. You can see it there. He joined Trabzonspor on season-long loan deal. Andre Onana has left Manchester United to join Trabzonspor on loan for the 25-26 season. Yeah, you know the rest. I don't think there's an obligation to buy with this. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with his time in Turkey. I hope it works out for him. He's had a pretty horrible time of it, Andre Onana. He's just become an absolutely ridiculed figure. I was talking about this yesterday. Obviously, he was made promises, I think, that he was going to be the number one. There was reports that he turned down a number of clubs that he could have gone to because he believed he was going to be Manchester United's number one goalkeeper. And let's not forget, he was the number one last season. He played in the Europa League final. He played 90% of the games, whatever it was. It was only now and again that Altay Bayındır came in. So there's every reason for Andre Onana to think, okay, yeah, I'm still going to be number one. Especially when Altay Bayındır, no disrespect to the lad, didn't exactly set the world alight, did he, when he came in? So Andre Onana's probably come back, I know he picked up that injury, come back thinking, when I'm fit, I'm going to be in the team. And then it all got a bit weird, didn't it? Because we had the Arsenal game where Ruben Amorim basically said, well, Andre Onana is available, but I went with Bayındır. So it was obviously a tactical decision. When I say tactical, he just he preferred Altay Bayındır. Bayındır makes a mistake, keeps his place. Onana comes in the Grimsby game, and the rest is history. And I think with Onana, right, I think this happens with all players. It's like everything becomes an extremist view, doesn't it? Where it's like he's not just been poor. He's been United's worst ever signing. He's not just made mistakes. He's never had a good game for United. It get into that sort of narrative, which isn't true. He has had some good games for Manchester United. He's pulled off some fantastic saves for Manchester United. However, on the whole, he hasn't been anywhere near good enough. I think we can all agree on that. What sort of saddens me a little bit is when I saw like fake pictures doing the rounds of the Grimsby game, where there was that picture of him diving to the left of his goal, I think, before the penalty even being taken, and it was obviously fake. But that gets shared everywhere, and everyone's like, look at this idiot, look at this clown. And I think, look, if you don't rate him, I get why you don't rate him. There's enough actual evidence to support your argument that he ain't good enough without making stuff up about him. Then you see other things like the wages thing. I think under Ten Hag, where he came back from the summer and was found out his wages had been cut because we hadn't made the Champions League, and was upset about it and sort of wanted to renegotiate his contract, and was told that that wasn't an option. Now, again, it doesn't look good when you're one of the reasons we're not in the Champions League and you're asking to sort of renegotiate your contract. However, we don't know the full ins and outs. Someone was making a point the other day that I think he's got a foundation in his home country and he sends money to that, so maybe that came into his thinking. I don't know, but it just all adds to this air of Andre Onana is just this sort of lunatic. And I have said he is a bit off his head. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't. However, I do feel a little bit sorry for him with some of the stick he gets. Some of it, I think he's OTT. But I don't think he's good enough for Manchester United. I think this is a good move for him. Trabzonspor, big club in Turkey. Hopefully he can get his career going again. And hopefully he can get a permanent move. Because I don't think there's any chance of, no matter what he does in Turkey, of him coming back and suddenly being put back into the Manchester United first team and smashing it. I just don't think that's going to happen. I hope what happens is Sen Lemons comes in, does really well, and is our number one goalkeeper for the next 20 years. That's what I hope happens. Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat in the comments. Alex says, I can't remember one full good game. He had a good game at... Start naming good games. He had a good game at Anfield, if you remember, a couple of seasons ago. I think he had a good game against City not long ago. Yeah, there has been good games. Just not many of them, not enough of them. That's the thing. I don't think there's never been a good game from Andre Onana. I think that's stretching it. Andrew says Onana is a good keeper, just not good enough for the club. BM says Jay, fair play for the unwavering sun bashing. What they did to the Scousers was reprehensible. Rivalry goes out the window. JFT 97. Listen, I will never ever buy the Sun, and I'll always state that what they did to Liverpool fans was reprehensible, and what they've done elsewhere as well has been completely reprehensible. So yeah, I completely agree with that comment. Jane Joe's adopted son Benjamin says, I feel the younger generation is doing too much online and it's hurting players' mental health, to be honest with you. Let's not pretend they're not human. It's a great point, they are. Steen C says, no way these friendlies would generate 100 million. He's not having it. Champions League would maybe. 10 friendlies at half price could maybe generate 20 to 30 at best, and we'd have to share with the opponent, I guess. Yep. I think you're probably all right. It does seem a little bit ambitious when you put it like that. 100 million for some friendlies. I mean, that is kind of Champions League money, isn't it? So, don't know. Unless you've signed some mega deal with like Amazon to show them. I don't know how you're going to work that one out. Let's talk about some goalkeepers here. So Manchester United players relieved to have avoided squad problem with transfer window closed. The arrival of San Lamons on transfer deadline day has left Man United with 4 senior goalkeepers for just over a week. So this is from Samuel Luckhurst in the Manchester Evening News. And he's basically just saying that we've avoided this situation where you can have 4 senior goalkeepers, because that would be nonsensical. Like, if you were to have Tommy Eaton, Alec Bayandé, Andre Onana and San Lamons, I mean, you can't even have one of them on the bench, and even then you're going to have 2 goalkeepers on the bench, which is a bit stupid. I know we do that quite a lot. So one of them had to go. Just one goalkeeper had to move on. It didn't really make any sense for it to be Tom Heaton. I think he's just signed a new deal, and also I think he's one of the reasons Tom Heaton's in the squad is not just because of his ability as a goalkeeper, because let's be honest, the third choice goalkeeper hardly ever plays, and he certainly hardly ever plays when you haven't got European football or Carabao Cup football. So there's a good chance Tommy never plays a first-team match for Manchester United this season. However, around the camp, his personality, his experience, he is sort of revered. I think he's part of that leadership group as well. So it made sense to keep him. Obviously, San Lamons, you just brought him in. He's not going anywhere. So it had to be Bayandé or Onana who moved on. Onana, you'd expected him to move on because he is the first choice goalkeeper, or he's the main goalkeeper, and he isn't going to play anymore. You wouldn't think he's going to play anymore. So it makes more sense that he's moved on, and he has done. He's gone to Trabzonspor. Adam Kenty says, to be fair, we couldn't trust De Gea for the last 2 years either. The sort of narrative around De Gea now is we should have stuck with him. We should have stuck with De Gea instead of bringing in Andre Onana. And I actually think there's a different argument. People act like the only 2 options in the world were either keeping David De Gea or spending 45 million on Andre Onana, which is a lot for a goalkeeper. I think it's certainly the most Manchester United have ever spent on a goalkeeper. There are other options. There were other goalkeepers around. You didn't have to only buy Andre Onana. So I don't quite buy into that. I don't think those were the only 2 options. I get you can argue that we should have stuck with David De Gea over buying Andre Onana. I get that argument, but I don't think those are the only options. I think we actually could have looked at other goalkeepers. And I think there's better goalkeepers around that we could have stuck with. Do you know what? It's a shame for me that we didn't perhaps look at other players, because we just sort of had this sort of tunnel vision, didn't we? Where we only went with Andre Onana, and there wasn't, I know we brought in Bayandé as well, but there wasn't any sort of, it didn't seem like United were linked with loads of goalkeepers. We were linked with Bart Verbruggen for a little while, and that was it. Also, I'm still a bit disappointed in how the whole Dean Henderson thing ended. I am. I think he was so stupid. I do. I think if he'd have knuckled down, he would have got another opportunity as Manchester United's number 1, and he could have took that. If you rate himself, which he obviously does, he's not short of confidence, he could have maybe got himself into the conversation there. Because let's not forget, David De Gea was number 1 goalkeeper and under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and had his reputation was sort of sterling. And then he had a little bit of a sticky one. And then Dean Henderson became for a spell our number one goalkeeper. You remember, I think it was at the Etihad where he started the game. There was other games where in the Premier League, Dean Henderson became number one goalkeeper under Ole. So that could have happened again. Now, I'm not, you might argue and say, Dean Henderson's not good enough either. You're probably right, but I just think it's a shame he didn't at least try and fight for your place. A lot of people sort of talk about fighting for your place as a Manchester United player, getting yourself in the team, not just bottling it. Dean Henderson didn't want to know. He said it himself. He didn't even want to train under Erik ten Hag. Didn't even want to show the manager what he was about. And then he went on TalkSport, or whatever it was, and moaned like he'd been hard done by. Well, I think he did himself a disservice there. Number 7 says, David De Gea is a goalkeeper, Onana is a gloves-man. I love that. Leo says, Hendo got COVID when he was our number one. Yeah, I think that really did scupper him. Tyrell Malacia, what's going on with him? Peter Hall, who's been on the channel, good lad Peter, says, Onana done, but it looks like Malacia could be staying put with a low move to Trabzonspor on the verge of collapse. This was 10-9 last night. Yeah, we'll see what happens with this. I feel a little bit sorry for Tyrell Malacia. As I often say, he caught strays, didn't he, with the whole bomb squad thing. The worst thing that Tyrell Malacia ever did was go to speak to his own, or get surgery off his own doctor. His own surgeon, not the one the club suggested. It didn't work out, and now he's just stuck in limbo, and he can't get a club. He's not that fucking bad. Surely someone must want him. Like, I don't know, maybe he's not willing to drop down to a certain level, because I get it. We'll have to wait and see. Let's have a look at this Wonderkid. So, Man United take Wonderkid winger on trial. Extraordinarily effective dribbler. Tipped as his country's next big star. So, who is this kid? Who we got? No, that's an advert. There we go. Sorry. There we go. Etienne Mendy. Manchester United have taken Senegalese Wonderkid Etienne Mendy on trial. 13 football. Wonderful. Says, after City, Bahama, and Dié to Liverpool, another youngster from Diambars, so Diambars attracts an English club. It's Etienne Mendy, the right winger, international, under 16, is currently on trial at Manchester United. I just wanted to get rid of that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, not necessarily Etienne Mendy, we'll wait and see what happens with him, we don't know, but there has been a lot more. I know we've always had youngsters on trial, this isn't anything new, but just as a general thing, you can see there's been a lot more focus on the academy and the youngsters since Ineos have come in. I do feel like this is going to be a sort of a big part of their long-term plan, because you look at the money involved in football, you look at the money we don't have as well, you have to nurture young talent, even if it is to eventually sell them. That is a big part of football nowadays, probably more so than it's ever been. And maybe Manchester United are sort of leaning a little bit more towards that. We know we've got some very, very talented youngsters. Me and Finn were talking about JJ Gabriel the other day, who he's just scored another hat-trick. He's this lad that's sort of named Kid Messi. There's already a sort of anxiety about keeping him. I think he's been training with the first team. There's a big sort of push to try and get him secure down at Manchester United, because there was talk of him going elsewhere earlier on. Arsenal have done it with their youngsters. You look at someone like Max Dowman, who everyone was raving about. He's in the squad now. He's getting first team minutes at what has he just turned? I think he's only just turned 16, or he's quite young anyway, because there's this sort of idea that not only do you need to sort of tap into your youngsters and use that to move forward, which you've always had to do, but more so to save money, but you need to make sure they're tied down to your club. They want to stay at your club, because there's so much power now that these young players have, even 15 and 16-year-olds. We saw it with Chido Obi, didn't we? Arsenal wanted to keep him. He wanted to leave. They were a bit miffed, but he came to Manchester United. So it is a massive, massive part of the way football is going, and there's positives and negatives to it, but Manchester United have always had a close attachment to our academy, and long may that continue. Just looking ahead towards the Manchester derby, we are going to be hearing from Ruben Amorim later on today. We're also going to be hearing from Pep Guardiola. We can get some updates, hopefully, on the likes of Mason Mount and Matheus Cunha. Those are the two big injuries, maybe even Lisandro Martinez as well. Pep Guardiola's got a load of injuries too, so normally I wouldn't care, but obviously because we're playing him, I do care. So we'll wait and find out what's going to go on with Manchester City and see who's available for them. But yeah, it's a big game this weekend, isn't it? Obviously, Manchester derby is always a big game, but City struggling, 2 losses already this season. United in that sort of middle thing, a loss, a win and a draw. I just feel for sort of the narrative around Ruben Amorim, a win at the Etihad, another win at the Etihad would be huge, it really would. and just maybe it can get some of the criticisms that he's been getting a little bit, it can quiet him down a little bit. Anyway, me and Joe will be back later on today with the preview. Also, we've got the brew with me, Steve and Joe. Steve. He hates you when I call him that. Me, Steve and Joe. So make sure if you're not doing so already, you are hitting like, share and subscribe. Just before I go as well, I'm going to throw a little link in the chat to the Paddock store. We've got our new line of merchandise there, Stretford Paddock merchandise. Go and check that out. Some good stuff, hoodies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, all that good stuff. Also rings and key rings, and pint pots and all that stuff as well. So go and check out there. There's a little link in the chat. Big thank you to everyone who got involved in the chat, by the way. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Jay Moy. This has been The Paper Talk. Thank you.